Hello, hello. We are live. All right, we are going to be reviewing another article. Before we start, I'm going to go ahead and put on some music and then shout out the stream and we'll jump into it. There we go. All right. Man, I am tired today. I am so tired. I just woke up really early at like 6 and could not go back to sleep. But we're doing this. All right. Okay, so I actually want to grab one thing that I'm going to be good to go. Music seems to be good. We'll dive into it. So today's topic is going to be basically how difficult is it really to become a good software engineer? Is it impossible? Is it extremely hard? Has it gotten harder? I don't know, but we're going to dive into it. So give me 1 minute. I'll be right back, and then we'll jump right in. All right, let's go. Close that. All right. Unpopular opinion. It's harder than ever to be a good software engineer. Cool. What's the author's name? Juraj. All right. Hopefully I pronounced that correctly. So, working in a startup environment for almost a decade has given me privileged access to fast-paced culture of innovation, exploration, and a fail-fast approach. I followed a standard progression ladder: intern, junior, mid, senior, and eventually moved to engineering management track. Over time, many people I grew with later moved on to work at other companies, becoming highly respected contributors there. It'd be fair to say they are good engineers. What's up, Jessa? Looking back at the journey of my peers, mentees, and my own, it seems harder than ever to be a good engineer. All right, yeah, what's your definition of a good engineer? As a software engineer, as we are, responsible for translating complex problems into efficient and scalable solutions, tasked with analyzing user requirements, designing software architecture, writing code, and testing and debugging software. And this is one that a lot of new developers tend to overlook. Expected to stay on top of trends, seeking new business opportunities and ways to improve existing products. So no, engineering doesn't equal programming. Sometimes that is the smallest part. It definitely appears so as one acquires more experience, as shown in the figure below. What is this? How do you typically spend your time in each role? Software engineer. I'd be curious. I was just downloading the image. I wonder if he provided a source, but I'd be curious about like how many years of experience people have, because like as even as like mid-level, it's going to be very different. The amount of time you're actually going to be coding at mid-level is going to be less typically than a brand new developer or junior developer. I feel like I want more data with that. Okay, we're just moving on. What does it mean to be a good engineer? Based on the numerous interviews and supporting my mentees' progress, I noticed that people with different levels of expertise might give different answers. Someone just starting out might think it's the number of languages and frameworks a developer knows, a huge misconception. a more experienced engineer might not even care about the language they're using. And to be fair, like, there are a lot of senior engineers that believe this as well. So it's not just picking the juniors. This bad advice comes from senior engineers. Just throwing that out there. So a more experienced engineer might not even care about the language they're using, instead emphasizing code quality, adhering to all code principles, and conducting QA while moving swiftly. That sounds perfect. Highly experienced engineers place an enormous focus on bringing value. That is true. That is very, very true. It shifts, and I think it, like, as you grow as a software engineer, I think it does help to learn more languages or frameworks. I think sometimes people overdo it and they set that as a metric for a skill level when it's not. But I think getting exposure to different ways of doing things, different ways of coding, different ways of architecture, different ways of just like considering scalability versus efficiency versus readability, like whatever you're trying to prioritize for what you're building, that's relevant. So I'm just going to keep reading. You know what? I was thinking about it. I think I want to try to go off on less rants, and I want to try to get more context before I give my opinions. So I'm going to try that today. So we're going to keep reading. Highly experienced engineers place an enormous focus on bringing value. Sometimes we'll quickly write throwaway code that breaks all the rules to prove a hypothesis. Sometimes we'll spend days writing a couple of lines of mission-critical code. But most days we are making architecture designs, discussing mission-critical issues, improving processes. Why? Because often that brings the most value. That is true. And it's a reason why, like, DevOps and making things more efficient and automated and easier for developers are highly, highly desired on teams, and just especially back-end engineers that want to dive a little bit deeper into DevOps and just make things easier for your team. You're going to be very much valued. Managers truly do appreciate efficiency, like building, even just focusing on things. It doesn't necessarily need to be code, but focusing on things that the team can improve, that will improve the team overall. And a lot of times it's just making the team more efficient. That is usually a big driver, even just for raises and recognition. But, you know, like this is a good mindset to adopt of, like, how can I provide value? Well, at first, it's just being the best coder that you can, and whatever you interpret that to be. You're just trying to get better at programming in general and, like, navigating a really complex code base that you've never dealt with any of your personal projects. I don't think you need to. I guess what I'm trying to say is, like, be careful about trying to be a really good engineer really early on. Just talk with your manager, discuss kind of a plan of action, discuss expectations, and just do your best. But ultimately, as you get a little bit more senior, you get a little bit more time in as a software engineer, I think shifting your focus to, like, just being a problem solver, being able to provide value to the team, value to the company, doesn't always mean diving into the code, and often it doesn't. And you're going to be able to make a bigger impact when you consider that. Although there are always exceptions to the rule, we can say that a good engineer is one who efficiently focuses their effort to bring maximum value in achieving a goal. All right, so that's your definition. Growing markets and competition. The tech market is constantly evolving. We have all seen massive successes over the years, from WhatsApp or to Uber, Airbnb, TikTok. While these may be exceptions, such examples often set the North Star for people, something they should strive for. This way of thinking puts extra pressure on engineers. They feel stressed from the inside, thinking they're doing something wrong, and from the outside with people comparing their company to many competitors. Yep. You get a lot of bragging. A lot of elitism that is a result of this. Way too many people are trying to aim for FANG companies. I would bet that, like, over... I'm talking out of my ass right now. But I would bet that at least 50% of people that are truly... Okay, they're new, first of all, but they're really trying to push for a FANG company. With being new, I don't think they'd actually enjoy a FANG company like they think they would. And I think they'd find more satisfaction. And like, you know, different people are going to want to feel like they impact companies in different ways. And I feel like the type of impact that you can have at a FANG company and just the culture around that is, you know, it's vastly different depending on like whether you go for like a small tech-focused startup, you go, or even like a mid-stage startup, or even non-tech where you have a tech team, you have an app, you have a website. Like that culture is very different. Even if the company size is the same, just being like a company that focuses on a SaaS product versus one that just has an internal tooling or internal website or anything like that, like it's going to be vastly different. And the culture is going to be different on the tech team. But I feel like people just think it's going to be the best decision they've ever, the best accomplishment. Maybe I think some people like it because it's difficult to get in, and I think they're going for the challenge. But I think some people don't really understand the culture at different FANG-like companies, and each has their own culture. And I just think they don't really know what they're in for. I think a lot of people are going to be disappointed, and I think you're going to find much more satisfaction in your career by truly considering a lot of startups. And if you want to go like a mid-stage startup or something with some sort of a series of funding that'll show some longevity in the company, like that's fine. You don't have to go with a brand new startup, but so many people set their goal for a FANG company, and most will never achieve it. And many, I think, I don't know. I just feel like they're going to be expecting something different. I've heard good stories and bad stories about different FANG-like companies, and it can vary, but usually the expectations are very different than the reality. I think that's the summary that I want to give. To succeed in such an environment, companies need to move fast and break things. As a famous Facebook motto says, today this is more obvious than ever. Almost every company is becoming an AI company. Everyone is integrating... I like the quotes. Everyone is integrating ChatGPT, often for no real reason, without a strategy on how it will bring value. Yeah, because investors like hearing about AI. By moving away from the core principle, how can we bring more value to our customers? And moving towards beating the competition on the hype train, we get engineers building functionalities that are doomed to fail. The world is a confusing place. What should an enthusiast such as myself do to become a better engineer, apart from the obvious choice of perfecting coding skills by improving clean code and architecture philosophies? Nowadays, there are lots of temptations lurking. Learning TypeScript and that one latest framework that changes everything, diving into the world of blockchain and crypto, experimenting with the myriad of AI products, options are endless. All right, let's read this meme. I'm an expert in JavaScript. Oh yeah, name 15 frameworks. This just hurts to read because it's so true. Launched, what's up, Dewey? Launched this month, or that's on me, I set the bar too low. Bro, like, this is the cringiest developer you will ever talk to. This meme hurts too much. We're moving on. To be honest, after so many years in the industry, I still felt threatened by the new wave of change brought on by ChatGPT. A lot of people did. GitHub Copilot and other emerging tech. I can, that's why I kind of ask those questions as well, do random polls in the community post. But it does feel like the fear of AI taking dev jobs has gone down significantly, which is good. Because it's true. There's really nothing to fear in the near future. My brain started imagining scenarios where I was out of touch with so many things. Am I focusing on the right things to bring value? Am I using my maximum potential? After some time, and it's really hard, even for professional software engineers, to figure out what they need to branch into next, what they need to keep up with, right? Because you can't keep up with everything. You can't. Even getting exposure to something, like, if you don't use it, you lose it. I think, like especially if you're considering, like, getting exposure to a bunch of different frameworks or libraries or languages, right? It really is only worth it if you're going to use it, if you're going to build something with it to reinforce it. There is a lot to do in tech. That is right, Brian. And it's hard for professional software engineers to figure that out. I don't think you need to have it figured out, though. But I think you need to really be okay, or I think you need to follow your curiosity. And if something seems interesting to you, question why that is. What seems interesting about it? That can tell you a little bit about yourself. It can tell you a little bit about what you aspire to do or to be. It can tell you what you're interested in. Like, if things naturally are fun to you, you truly should not just, like, stuff those under the carpet, the rug, and, like, and make an excuse for, like, oh yeah, it's just another thing I gotta learn, I can't keep up with it. Like, if something is fun and exciting, even if it's not directly on your path as a software engineer, explore it. There's something to that. There's something to something naturally catching your attention, because you'd be surprised at how easy your career becomes when day in and day out you are working with the technology that you love. You are solving the problems that you want to solve. Like, you always hear this saying, like a lot of people want to get to the point where it doesn't feel like a job because they love it so much. And you get a lot of people that just have a very pessimistic mindset that they'll never achieve anything close to that. And they're right. As long as you continue to have a mindset of, like, it's just a job, you won't achieve anything close to what they're talking about. It's a shift in mindset that unlocks that. But yeah, it's hard to know exactly the exact linear path that you need to go, but I think curiosity is something that you should explore. But also, as you start figuring out what kind of problems you like to solve, I think doing research into, common languages. What's up? I think doing research into common languages or frameworks or companies that are going to be solving those problems, like, you're going to have to do a bit of research to start lining up your career path, but it starts with that curiosity for sure. After some time, it became clear we were in a hype. That too will pass, yep. Leaving only AI companies that are creating long-term value. The number of AI companies in the last 5 years has doubled in the US. With many startups just adding a feature on top of the newly released GPT-3, they would later die with the release of GPT or GPT-4. How old is this article? Is there a date on this? I'm just curious. October 15th. The newly released GPT-3. Wonder if they're just talking about, like, the recent version of it. Okay. I need to highlight where I left off. Hold on. What? Where did I leave off? I always lose my point. There it is. All right, we're good. Sorry, I panicked. They would later die with the release of ChatGPT or GPT-4, which could do the same thing. Warning, Mahan, but better. But that doesn't stop the hype army of Twitter and other platforms from proclaiming the new world order. Okay. Even with so many years working in tech, I got sucked into the hype. Rookie mistake. And I think we all do to some extent at some point. But I think it's almost a milestone to get past that and understand, like, it's fine to get excited about something, but when that excitement leads to you fighting for bringing that library or framework or convention onto the team because you think it's here to stay, like, it depends how, like, what actions you take when you do discover something brand new. And I think there are a lot of I can't put a percentage on it, but I've talked with a lot of software engineers that push brand new stuff too quickly into established code bases, or they try to, and they sometimes make a really good argument for it, but it's usually like this is going to be well maintained and like it's going to become or remain very stable. Usually the argument of like, it's hard to make an argument for like longevity of bringing something new in on the team, but somehow some software engineers bullshit their way into making a halfway decent argument into it, and then it just goes forgotten, and then they leave the team. No one wants to maintain that part of the code. No one understands it. And then you're kind of just depending on a library that all of a sudden isn't maintained any longer, and the hype dies, and I don't know. I think I just have a growing, not concern. I'm just tired. I'm tired of hype. I'm tired of everyone freaking out over the brand, like the newest framework, the newest library, the newest thing that is just a godsend, especially in the JavaScript world. I'm exhausted. I've seen so many things just come and go, and then when I hear, I'm just ranting. This is we'll continue reading a little bit more. I just stop getting sucked into the hype, please. I'm telling you, like a lot of very good software engineers, senior software engineers are. It's going to be a little bit of a bad signal that needs to be corrected in you. Just be careful about like pushing brand new things and. Okay. Programming languages and constant releases of new frameworks also add to the confusion. Tailwind, TypeScript, Haskell, Rust are all great. They each have an angle that gives them an advantage. However, people often mistake learning them for something that will give them an edge. It won't, or at least it shouldn't. They're just tools. I'm going to repeat that. They are just tools that are nice to know, but can't replace experience. That is why we never put language framework requirements in our job descriptions. Okay, well, you're a minority on that one. That's a huge minority. I mean, they're probably talking about their company. Like, that's okay. We're just gonna keep going. I would be a fool to miss a talented engineer because they don't know TypeScript, prompt engineering, or microservices. Is this really a requirement? Have you guys seen this in the job postings? Prompt engineering? My advice is don't get caught up in new trends and hype to the point where you lose focus on bringing value. Yep, fast-paced, and high expectations. When seeking new challenges, it can be difficult to strive for positive stress while avoiding negative stress. Positive stress is one where we perceive a stressful situation as an opportunity leading to a good outcome, while negative stress is one that can have detrimental physical and mental health effects, as seen in the image below. Continuously delivering results on a tight schedule is stressful, and building features for the wrong reasons sways toward the latter. Okay, so positive stress improves performance. Give me examples. Improves performance, motivates to tackle challenges, provides a burst of energy, empowers growth, negative, decreases performance, feels beyond our influence. And that's usually, like a bit, there's definitely a lot of lack of control when that stress starts to become overwhelming, or vice versa. Like, yeah, demotivates, causes anxiety, depression. I think a lot of people do, like, yeah, stress can be perceived in different ways, I suppose, or at least the symptoms of stress, and even the reasons, the causes of that stress. But I think a lot of people feel more stressed when they feel like they don't have control over their situation, when they feel like they're not heard at work, when they feel like, yeah, that it's too much for them to handle with their self-perception of their own capabilities of overcoming this next hurdle. overcoming this challenge. I think that's where a lot of stress really starts to burn people out, is when they feel like they are losing control. That's a big one. Both as a mentor and as a hard worker, I've seen stress lead to burnout. Without exception, having someone go through burnout results in less output and reduced workload. Taking a break and optimize for the long term. That's why we always try to make raising red flags as straightforward as possible. Okay, he's talking about his own company. He's not talking about like we as like the software engineering industry. I just wanted to make sure. With periodic team updates, one-on-ones, and a nurturing culture. I think one-on-ones with your manager, I used to do these weekly with my first boss. I think they helped. But I did them because I was also new. It was my first developer job. I don't think it's necessary, and I think you're going to find that you're going to be given more autonomy, ownership, and trust as you gain experience in the industry. But I would even argue, if things aren't going well for you, to take that initiative and like have those conversations. Just have those chats. Go out to lunch with your boss. Go out to like grab a beer or something like that afterwards. Because I feel like a lot of people's problems, including some of my own that I could have solved, would have just been grabbing a beer with my boss. You know what I mean? I feel like not enough people speak up when things aren't going as they had hoped. Still, things will go wrong when they do. We cut scope, involve people who can help, or communicate with our clients to postpone a launch. Pressure is higher than ever, coming bold from within and without. Stay focused and surround yourself with a supportive team, optimizing long term. Okay, so I was wondering like what situations would be labeled as like causing positive stress and negative stress, but I think the focus is on the perception, and I agree with that. Okay, cool. You have a one-on-one with your boss once a month and director quarterly. How's that going for you? Do you feel like it helps, or do you feel like it's a waste of time? Conference last week. Still not sure it's really a single role, but it's a skill needed for grappling. Conference was last week. What? What are you talking about? All right, so how can we do better? We all have our down moments, feeling like inadequate engineers, mentors, or colleagues. Things will never be perfect or easy, and they shouldn't. Without making mistakes and hard times, we don't learn. But there are some things I find can increase efficiency. Individual, company, culture, blah, blah, blah. Okay. Individually, stay true to what is really important. Technologies will come and go, but the value you bring to the world is what counts. It's hard to fake hard work and experience. Is this the end of the article? Is that it? As a company, start with why. When making decisions, this is the best way to deliver functionalities that will bring value. Also, make sure the employees know why. In my experience, they will make better decisions, give valuable feedback, and be happier. Culturally, establish processes that will support the employees, optimize long-term. Together with the colleagues, establish a culture of trust, support, caring. That way, you will all get the best of one another. Okay. I thought there was going to be more depth to this. It was pretty surface level. I thought it was longer when I actually looked it up. Like, so what I would have loved, I guess I'm kind of going to give my own take. I think there are foundational concepts in programming that will carry over into different languages. I think there are foundational concepts, or even just like learning the foundations and getting really comfortable with the language before you jump into the framework that uses that language so you can understand what's happening within that framework. I think there are ways to be able to learn and reinforce long-lasting knowledge that is just irrelevant to the framework or the library or the newest flavor of JavaScript that you're trying to learn. I wish he would have dove more into that. And I think that I thought that's kind of where the direction was going with this article, but I guess I'm still kind of left wondering exactly what he feels is truly important. So I'm kind of curious. But I like his focus. I really like his focus, and I think this is a focus that a lot of developers need to adopt. It's understanding why the company is doing something a certain way. Why, like, what problem is the company even trying to solve? Why is the company trying to solve it? I think understanding your users is crucial. And I think going through the process of trying to understand your users and ask the right questions so that you do is a skill that will carry over into different companies, different industries, entirely different industries. You know, when I say industries, I'm talking about like healthcare versus like, I don't know, e-commerce. Some like if you're managing some like e-commerce software or some like financial software. But it like just being able to ask the right questions of why this app is doing this a certain way, and even just getting feedback of like what users actually think about this certain type of implementation. Is it easier? Like going through different recordings, screen recordings of like how the users are actually using your website. What are they getting frustrated with? Seeing where, like what pieces of information on the website they're navigating to identify like what specific problems they're facing, what kind of questions they're trying to get answered from your app, from your website. I think trying to understand your users and ask those questions, it will ultimately give you an enormous amount of context. It'll give you a huge amount of context to be able to plan out, organize, consider scalability, consider like things that are going to influence your implementation within the code. I think product giving, it is product's responsibility to really try to instill that in software engineers and try to bridge that gap between the business needs and the development team. And some product managers will take initiative with that, and they love when you do care to ask those types of questions to understand your users, because ultimately, like, it's your responsibility as a developer to be able to create an implementation that makes sense with the progression of the company and the team. And as you get more years of experience, you start considering more and more into the future of the company, into the application, into the part of the application that you take ownership of. And, you know, sometimes you hear about like, oh yeah, you need to consider scalability, efficiency, blah, blah, blah. But those words are meaningless without context of what's important to the company, to the user. All of it's meaningless. It starts with the user all the time. And business requirements generally should be around solving the user's problem in the most efficient way possible. So in essence, don't just be a code monkey. Ask the right questions, get to know your users. I'm telling you, this is one of those things that'll really help you stand out. It'll help with raises in the future. And it just the skill of just identifying the exact problem that's trying to be solved and bringing that context into your planning of your implementation. Like, that is a skill that good senior engineers have. Because a lot of developers just love to dive into the code without any of those considerations. And I've done that. I'm not excluding myself, but I think like a lot of newer developers, it's pretty common to just dive into the code a little bit more quickly. And that's just a big difference I've noticed between senior engineers and brand new engineers. And culturally, it's tough. I actually did want to touch on this, because there are a lot of people that don't put enough emphasis on finding the right culture for them. Even picking out your manager. Even, like, are you someone that appreciates the micromanaging? Are you someone that just appreciates the autonomy more, right? People are going to be different, and I think you should take that into consideration when you are going through these interviews. You should definitely talk to your direct hiring manager before you ever accept a position. or the, not necessarily the hiring manager, but like whatever manager you're going to be working directly under. I think that goes a long way. And even just like working for someone that you vibe with and that empathizes with your goals and what your needs are is huge. That's the difference between you working at the company for 5 to 10 years versus you just quitting and just like counting down the months. It's 6 months in, you're like, this culture sucks, blah, 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 and you're just counting down the months to at least get that year in, right? That's the big difference with that. Culture has literally shaped my whole perspective of software engineering in general. And I could have really just settled and just try to make as much money as possible with really shitty management and just been depressed and had like a really negative experience of the software engineering industry. And just, again, just been another person saying it's just a job. Like, it's just a job, right? It could be so much more than that. And you could be so much of a better software engineer when you do try to find the right fit and you take time to care about this stuff. Oh, gotcha. Okay, so when I asked the question about prompt engineering, Mahan. Yeah, there's a conference, but I've never seen like prompt engineering as a requirement. Like in traditional dev positions. What's up, Renee? How you doing? So what do you guys think? We'll open it up to questions. Anything like that. We could chat for just a little bit. That's fine. I'm happy to answer questions. Yeah, for some reason, I thought this article was longer. I'm going to find one with a little bit more depth. I'm going to be honest. I appreciate this author for writing this. And it just feels like there wasn't depth in places that I was hoping to really dig into it. So I'm gonna find some longer articles. I do have a really good one in mind. It's a really long article. I just want to make sure that I'm awake for it. You know what I mean? Yeah, it's a big one. Companies aren't just hiring to have IT or devs. They're hiring us to make the company go forward. That is true. Were you actually having a lot of negative experiences? No. No. I think the big negative experience that I had when I was a professional software engineer was just how critical I was of myself. It was like the first job, it was me fearing that I was going to get fired because I wasn't being efficient enough, which wasn't true. My second job, it was needing my manager's approval when, again, I was doing just fine. My reviews said that as well. But for some reason, because I didn't hear from my manager, I had perceived that as like I was going to get fired. I had a big insecurity of imposter syndrome for the first 2 years, and it caused me to create this unneeded stress, right? I wasn't really, it turned from me being excited to grow at the company to me fearing that I'm not growing fast enough, and then me really getting stressed over the deadlines, and I'm just trying to bring it back up, and kind of like just falling in this category again. I would start here and then end here with pretty much almost every single position. And I found that it was because of, and I learned this about myself a while ago, and this is something I had to overcome, but it was my fear of, it was just like my need for approval to validate that I was growing as a software engineer, that I was contributing, that I was providing value to the company. And that's one thing I discovered this later, but you can establish your own metrics, and you should. You can establish your own metrics for success and growth, and you should figure out how to do that. You should like, it doesn't necessarily need to align with the goals of the company, which hopefully it kind of blends together a little bit. It's going to make your time easier at that company. But if you want to grow a certain direction as a software engineer, it helps to have a bit of an end goal. And it's not a permanent end goal. It's just your next milestone. Let's call it that. But I think when you discover your next milestone, and we talked about it, like, you got to get curious, you got to explore and talk to different software engineers in different positions, get exposure to what the hell is out there, right? Especially if you're brand new into development, you don't know what's out there. But I think talking with other software engineers will give you some exposure and some ideas, but develop that milestone and then figure out what metric you need to measure to basically determine that you're actually moving towards that milestone and you're going to reach it. You're making progress. What does that progress look like? And I think this needs to be internal more, because you can have a very long career with software engineering, and if you only measure your growth based on what your manager says or what the company's expectations of you are, like, you're probably going to work at several different companies. So I think you need to expand eventually what that means to be a good software engineer. So that was my problem, is just, my problem was, it was just attributing, or it was just measuring my growth in very negative ways and leaning on someone else to do that for me. And then if I didn't get the right responses, I would automatically be more critical of myself. Like, just, I actually think that's kind of common when, when managers just have a bad week and stuff like that, and you might have this perception that they are, I don't know, they're not really happy with your work, and that's why, like, a lot of people jump to conclusions like that. I think it's just people owe it to themselves to not put so much emotion on that kind of stuff and really build up an internal process for growing as a developer, because that company is just going to be one company. You're probably going to move on to another company. A lot of people really, they take a few dev positions to kind of settle into a company, a dev position that they really enjoy, where they can start making real progress, right? And so even your first two positions, don't put a lot of weight on those positions if things aren't going well. Like, you have a long career ahead of you, and yeah, I think I'm just ranting at I think I made my point. I hope I did. All right, that's pretty much it. I just want to do a quick session. I'm just trying different articles. But yeah, tomorrow, what we're going to do, we're going to hop on. It's going to be 5 p.m. Central Time. And we're going to do a Q&A session. So if you guys have questions, blockers about becoming a web developer, that is the time to ask. Saw a change my mind meme the other day. AI will not take your job. People who know how to use it will. I think this is on the mark for the field in upcoming years. I don't think so. I don't. I was starting to think that, but I'm not convinced. I'm going to be honest, Mahan. I'm not convinced, because I think that kind of sends a message to dive deeper and deeper into utilizing AI to kind of help. I don't think that's necessarily true over the next few years. Like, we're already having issues with a lot of the models just kind of being tainted with a lot of bad data. And, like, there's a lot of... We should, like, dive into an entire conversation about, like, how the models are developing, how AI is being used in tech, and kind of just, like, our own guesses and estimations as to, like, where it's going to end up in, like, a year, 3 years, stuff like that. I think that'd be a fun conversation, but I don't know. My confidence for AI being utilized among developers, it's actually going down. And I'm hearing different developers just getting frustrated with what AI is turning into. So we might end up at a point where, like, AI is going to be very much integrated into our workflow, but I think we're going to see this, like, wave of integration and acceptance of bringing that into the software engineering world. Because right now I'm seeing a lot of frustration. I'm kind of seeing that interest go down. But I don't know. We'll see. It's still early on. You know what I mean? It's still really... I think it'd be a fun conversation for sure. All right. that's pretty much it. Guys, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate you. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up. I just want to cover this article, but I'll see you guys tomorrow. Good luck in all of your projects, and happy coding. Take care.